Is it working? Hope so. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to your weekend. If you're watching this on Saturday, then chances are your Saturday did not go as well as you had hoped. So I had put out, it's been a few days ago, I put out a survey that was just basically outlining what are you going to spend on your car? Like, what is your budget that you don't want to go over? What is a cap, for example? And the numbers that I put out there were a $2,000 cap, a $6,000 cap, a $12,000 cap, and a $20,000 cap. And of those four, I also included a zero. Basically, I'm just going to leave it stock. So Michael Corleone is in, saying, "Good evening, Professor Mason. Got the arm flex. I like it." So what ended up coming from this was actually some pretty interesting data. Nitro, what's up, brother? So I want to walk y'all through some of the data and kind of give you guys some of my impressions of this. So the last time I looked at it, I think there was about 165, 175 people had multis in. What's up, multiple Mopars? Had taken place in that survey. And basically the percentages broke down like this. For $0, absolutely nothing, not going to do anything to the car, 6% of the folks had responded that that was going to be basically where they were going to be with this. And I'm going to bring this down to, like, you know, the Family Feud style. Out of 100 people, roughly, when you broke down all the math, about 6.5 people would say they wouldn't do anything with the car. Just the basics was $2,000. Well, Mopar saying, "I never set budgets because I always break them." Mine is always, I'm never going to do anything until I say I'm never going to do anything, and then it's guaranteed that whatever I said that I was never going to do, when I said I was never going to do that anything, will be completed in about 6 months. So that's usually how mine ends up working out. $2,000, basically just the basics. And that can be whatever you think of as basics. It could be, you know, a couple of, you know, just tinkers, like a cold air kit, you know, a couple of minor modifications, but nothing major. I guess I can't inhale that soda there. 24% of you guys fell into that just the basics category. The overwhelming majority fell into the next category, $6,000. So basically $6,000 would have been the cap for almost half of the respondents in this survey. $12,000 picked up 20%, which I thought that was pretty interesting. And then $20,000 and over picked up 7%. If you look at the numbers, 6, 24, 42, 20, and 7, it makes a perfect bell curve. I mean, it's just crazy how close that was. So let's break down the... Nitro saying he was one of those big ballers. It's a pro at dumping money. Yeah, no kidding on that. Goldberg saying, "In Virginia on vacation and still catching live from the professor. I like it. Got the arm flex." So check this out. This is actually where things get kind of funny. When you look at the curve of this thing, again, it's like a perfect bell curve. If you take the average of everybody, when I did the math on this, when I did the math and got the grand total of revenue that would have been generated from this, the first category at $0, it's zero revenue. The 24% at $2,000 would have generated, in this hypothetical situation here, $51,840. The fat part of the bell curve would have generated, that 42% would have brought in $272,160. Here's where the numbers start to get kind of interesting. The $12,000 guys, basically the ones that are not playing around, that number is eerily close to that median part of the bell curve, $259,000. And then the top tier guys were at $51,000. So a full $100,000 more than the folks that were only spending $2,000. Again, pretty interesting when you broke it down for the folks that were actually going to spend the money. So when you take that and break it all down, what was the true average? Okay, we know what the mean is here, but what was the, or median, I guess you could say, if you want to call it that. It's basically going to fall around $6,000. But what is the average out of all of it? All the respondents versus all of the hypothetical money averaging out comes out to $6,800. Even with that much revenue generated by those that would spend roughly $12,000, the average number, taking into account even the guys that wouldn't spend money, the average number came out to $6,800. And the reason why that's interesting to me is, have you ever priced putting a cam in a 392? It's eerily close to that $6,800 mark. So also, if you look up doing like a single pulley or something like that, with the injectors and the pulley and the tuning and the unlock and all of that, it's going to be eerily close to that $6,800 mark. It's going to fall within a few $100s of that. So anyway, I wanted to bring that to y'all's attention. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I appreciate it, for all of you guys that decided to take part in that. That was a lot of fun for me to play around with some data. But again, looking back at it with so much of the average amount of money looking like that $6,800, it was interesting that basically the other half of the folks that were responding to this were willing to spend money to the tune of about 44% of the entire graph was willing to spend a fairly significant amount of money. Again, with the smaller portion going out there just blowing all the money that they can on the car. So if you ever wondered, and again, that's why I did that poll, was to find out exactly what is and where did those averages fall in line, what would that get you? And so if you're spending $6,800, basically what does that get you? Well, basically it gets you a camshaft swap on a 392. Just looking at some of the costing that I've got here, it's not going to put you into the stratosphere on any of the builds, but it will take you right to the limit of what I consider to be safe on 93 octane gasoline, which is again kind of a funny thing. So again, a camshaft swap, you'd also be looking at, a single pulley, like a 10% lower, injectors, tuning, and all of that. So anyway, just figured I would share that with you guys because that was pretty cool information for me, and I like that a lot. Let's see. Bear with me just 1 second. All right, Cinnamon's in saying need to be. What's up, Sin? Didn't mean to miss you back there. Got with Nitro. Citrus saying happy Saturday. Got the arm flex. I like it. Brandon saying he's just got the car back from HHP this week. Got their stage 1, 285 pulley, 1050 injectors, 180 thermostat, and tuned the trans. Dynoed at 785, all for $3,600. Feels so much better. Can't wait to run it. That'll be a very fun car. It's a smoking deal on that too, by the way. Brendan's in saying, oh, my car's a 2020 Challenger Hellcat. What a bargain. Oh, Tuxedo likes the video on George's TRX. I'll tell you what, man, I am on record as saying that is not really my cup of tea, but I will tell you this right now, that truck in person is devastatingly pretty. And the interior of the thing is, I mean, you can't even describe it. The truck is an absolute knockout to look at. But when you start looking at what those things cost, it's like, golly, I wish, in a perfect world, I'd have one of those sitting in my driveway. But, I have been on record as saying that, man, I would love to see Dodge. I mean, and you can run these trucks concurrently. There's a lot of guys that love off-road stuff. But you could absolutely run these things concurrently. You could have the TRX for the hot rod off-road guys, but you could have, bring back the Warlock, which would just be a sweet name to go along with the Hellcat and the Red Eye and the Demon. If you're going to hang on nostalgia and you're going to hang on history, bringing into the fold something like a Warlock, a Hellcat-powered two-wheel drive truck would be sick. I would figure out a way to get one of those in the garage. Well, I say that, but it is with a heavy heart that I have to report that my drag strip is shutting down in April. That's right. Houston Raceway Park is going to be no mas come basically April. And so we've got up until March to make passes out there, and then it's going to be gone, and we're going to have to find other places to make hits. So whether it's 8th Mile over at HMP or it's quarter mile over at Evadale, I'll still be running the car. It's just I'm going to have to go a little bit further than just right in my own backyard to go race my car. So I did want to touch on that too. Yes, that track is closing, but there are other tracks that are open, and we can support those tracks that are going to support us in this community. So not looking forward to that shutdown, but kind of sucks. Hilton said he's getting a 4.7 Dakota on Monday. Nice, that'll be fun. Oh, Tux has got a Hot Wheels convo in his neck of the woods. Nice. Nitro's Crew's asking, are the wheel hop shocks on the Fox, the lateral ones, still working? Yes, they are. They work great. And I'll talk about that thing for a minute. So that car, I have had the pleasure of owning that car since a long time ago. Anyway, over 20 years ago. And it's been either my car or my dad's car for that period of time. And in that period of time, anytime, nearly any time, I've turned a wrench on that car, it has fought me in one way, shape, or form. And so if you're looking at the back of that car has the brakes off of a 2000 GT. And so in setting up brakes on a Fox body, one of the issues that you run into is, and it's actually pretty common, you have to run you basically have to balance the front and rear brakes. And what ends up happening is when you first put the system together, the issue is that it throws way too much brake pressure to the rear brakes. And if you don't set it up properly, what ends up happening is you glaze your rear brakes, and they basically lose about half or more of their stopping capability. So what you do is you have to install a proportioning valve. And in this case, the proportioning valve was set up to where it was throwing way too much line pressure at the rear brakes, which will cause a lot of problems. It will cause the rear brakes to glaze up, and it had caused an issue where because the braking pressure was not rear bias, it was just throwing pressure at the rear brakes, the front brakes were kind of funky too. So anyway, long story short, had to put new brake pads on the thing, and I was planning on putting rotors on it. But the problem was getting everything disassembled and getting it to somebody today to get that done was just not an option. So what I did was I just did probably one of the most unsafe things you can do. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do things. But what you do is you get your Dremel. You get a flapper wheel with 80 grit sandpaper. And the idea is that you're trying to get that glazing off of the rotors and rough them up so that the new brake pads will have something to seat to. The smart thing to do is to pull the rotors off and have somebody turn them. Well, the problem with that is that time. I just didn't have the time today to do that. So what I did was you get the car up lift the rear end, put it on jack stands, fire it up, put it in first gear. Take your Dremel, and basically you start cutting and you machine it yourself with the Dremel, an 80 grit flapper wheel. And I got all of that crap off of the rotors, and you basically just grind the thing. Don't use a cartridge roll, just use a flapper is what I was doing. Again, don't do this. It's one of the most dangerous things you can do because it's idling. And if you get your arm stuck anywhere near I've got long studs on that thing, it just snapped my arm right off like a gator. So anyway, don't do what I'm telling you that I did. I'm just telling you what I did so you know what not to do. Anyway, cleaned up the rotors and was putting the pads in the thing, and I had forgotten that the rear calipers were the screw-in type, not the press-in type, which it didn't really matter because I broke my, I figured out that I broke my caliper compressor, so I had to go get a new caliper compressor either way, then rented the tool to, screw the pistons back into the calipers and get everything put together. But anyway, long story short, it was just one of those days. But anyway, the setting on the setting on it right now is basically about 3/4 of a turn for bias in, but it's basically all the way out. There's just absolutely no rear bias in the thing whatsoever. In fact, it's like 3/4 of a turn in just to kind of seat the thing seat the proportioning valve. So anyway, that's what that post was about. That was just one of those things where this car, working on the car again, and the easiest jobs can sometimes turn into a complicated fiasco, and that's what I was running into with that. But was able to take the car out, bedding in the brakes a little bit. Car did great, and it found out pretty quickly. And you can feel it when you're working with a proportioning valve. If you don't have any weight transfer and you have small rotors in the back, and it's just trying to slow the thing down with the rear rotors, the car will it gets kind of a weird squat. You can feel it as you're driving the car. It's just no weight transfer. And now the car has good weight transfer. It feels like a car with a good set of brakes with those Cobra rotors up front, and the 2000 rotors out back. So that's what that picture was on Instagram, if you guys have seen that. Let's see. Bruce is asking, hey, my friend and I were wondering why Dodge offers the Hellcats with the skinny 275s rather than try to fit something a bit more traction friendly without going to the wide body. Man, that is a head scratcher. I wish I could answer that question. It's not like it could be that hard to put a staggered wheel and tire setup on the car. Everybody else seems to do it. Why can't Dodge? And that's been one of my sticking points with the Mopars. And it makes it difficult, I will admit, to find logic with that. And again, you can go back and look at the Scat Pack guys. The Scat Pack guys, got basically a 500 horsepower car trying to make 245s work. You got the Hellcat guys, Red Eye guys even trying to figure out how to make 275s work with all that 700 plus horsepower, 800 horsepower. So I don't know. You kind of get the idea that it was a little bit of an afterthought that just keeps being an afterthought. Modern Red saying, sup, Professor B, got the arm flex. Hilton's asking, any mods you recommend for the 4.7? Not really, just tuning. That's about it. Tux is asking, how many brands does Chrysler make? I think he's asking how many brands fall under the Mopar umbrella. I know Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Fiat, but aren't there any more brands that Chrysler makes? It's not really so much brands that Chrysler makes. Again, it's just what falls under that, what was FCA, now Stellantis umbrella. So you would have Peugeot, Maserati, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Ram. I'm going to forget more than they've got out there, but it's a lot. So it's Stellantis would be the umbrella that they fall under. Sean saying, what up, B? Yeah. Got a suspension on the way. Very nice. Modern Red's go, no sense in setting a budget. You're going to go over it anyway. Yeah, the funny thing is, in looking at where everybody was comfortable, like what was going to be that pressure point. Hey, Allstock, thank you very much. Saying in Master Mopar, what are your thoughts on Houston Raceway Park closing in 2022? So here's the thing. I'm obviously bummed out. That's been my home track. That's where I made my first passes. When I was a kid, it's where I went my first 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9-second passes were at Houston Raceway Park. I am bummed out about it, but you have to understand the unfortunate reality of what you're looking at with that property in and of itself. First of all, guys, when it comes to, and we can definitely talk about the HRP thing, that will be kind of part of an upcoming video, but one thing you have to understand is the family that has owned that property has owned it for 35 years, and it is time that family decided basically that they are liquidating all assets. They don't just own the track. There's construction companies, there's property holdings, and everything else that are associated with their LLCs, and so and their INCs. And so, at some point, as an investment, you got to cut bait and head back to dock, and that's exactly what they're doing. Now, you might say, well, what about just selling it to people that want to keep it up and keep it going? Well, one of the things you got to remember about owning a drag strip is that it is a passion project. It is a business, but it is not a business the way that you would consider a small business to be. There are so many costs and so many cost overruns. Everything that you touch is expensive for a property like that. Not the least of which is the cost of the land and then property taxes on the land. And one of the things that had happened was, and I don't know if this really necessarily revalued the property, but with that major thoroughfare being cut basically right next to the track, it may have caused, I should say, all kinds of problems with property taxes in general, things like that, which could have been another reason to let it go. You got to remember that most of the drag strips are out in the middle of nowhere because property taxes are extremely low. And that property resides on about 300 acres of now prime commercial real estate. So when, Creighton or whatever it is, offered them up, which is, I don't remember the number exactly, and if I heard it, I may have heard it wrong, but it's a significant amount of money, to the tune of, let's say, $50 million. You're gonna take the money and you're gonna run, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And of course, you can say, well, you could have sold it for whatever amount of money to people that would run it for you. The issue with that, again, is upkeep, updates, payroll, property taxes. You start looking at what it actually costs per month just to keep the lights on, so to speak. I mean, that's literally and physically at that track. And you're looking at a significant amount of money. And unless you've got heavy corporate sponsorship, which that number can be subject, and national events coming in and out of the place, it's going to be hard to cover just basic running costs of that facility. Now, with all that being said, if I had the money, I would open up something, mainly because it would benefit the community. The problem that I have with that track going away is that the community that it serves, Baytown, Texas, the fastest little town in the country, the problem is that it loses its identity with the loss of that track, and that is a real drag. And Baytown's been a really cool town. Love the town. And again, that track being part of its identity, it was always kind of part of the panache of Baytown. And without it, it just loses a massive amount of cool points. So I'm bummed out about it. There are going to be other tracks to go to. Again, Evadale, it's about an hour and a half away from Baytown. You've got HMP, which is an 8th-mile track, which is on the north side of town. And there's talk. There's a lot of folks that have connections, and they're talking about. There's a lot of folks that are kicking around the idea of opening up another track, but where would it be? Don't know. And what would be the timeline of that? Definitely don't know that either. So again, it is what it is. We're going to enjoy it for as long as we can. And when it comes time to put it to rest, then it'll be time to put it to rest. It really isn't going to affect me that much in going to drag strips. It's just going to affect what kind of drag strip I'll be going to or where I'll be geographically. Let's see. Oh, Alberto's saying, just back from Chicago, auto show, very nice. The one thing I noticed is that Ford's quality in their cars wasn't that great. It's funny because they're always bringing up Mopar quality being bad. It's hard to argue Mopar quality. I mean, guys, especially from the interior perspective, the new Mopar brands, whether it's Jeep, the Ram trucks, all of them are insanely nice. So it wasn't that long ago where Ford was the top of the heap when it comes to interior quality and ergonomic fitment. I mean, that was Ford's wheelhouse right there. But I got to tell you, these new Dodges are really nice. So I hear you there. Tux is saying, I just looked it up and they also make Ferrari, which is sick. That's right. So Maserati and the Ghibli, you got to remember, that's a Ferrari driven engine. So that is correct. Vortex saying, modern red Hemi, bingo. Oh, Smokey saying he just changed pads on the 6-pot Brembos. I've done that. Nice piece of casting flash inside the caliper, decided to stick on a piston seal. Oh, leaked rapidly, took the caliper apart, removed debris. Seal looked good. Ooh, that sucks. John's asking, what are my thoughts on Melling Hellcat lifters? I'd stick with Magneti Marelli. I don't really see any reason to go outside of what I know works. But Melling's a good company. I mean, they've been around forever. Check the size of the needle bearings in the Melling versus the stock Mopar, if you will. Non-MDS lifters, the Hellcat lifter. Check out, just if you look those up, I haven't done that. You can also cross-reference that to the Johnson lifters as well if you'd like. But to be honest, man, all the new stuff is really good. I just don't see there being a real fail point. I have heard in rare cases with cars with real aggressive cams, some of those cars may be going through a Hellcat lifter, but they're so few and far between. And I mean, really, none of the cams I put together should be all that hard on those cams anyway, considering what they have to go through with the stock cam. 215 on the intake side at 577 lift. It's basically like a stiletto heel. So, I mean, I'm really more surprised more of them don't fail on stock cams than anything else, but I'm just saying. But yeah, most of the aftermarket stuff's good. Smoke saying, put it back together and dodge the bullet. Yep, and All Stock saying Angel Brothers. That is correct. So one of the interesting things about the loss of Houston Raceway Park to me was that we saw it coming, that the property sold in 2019. So it's not like this is new news, but it really surprised me then that it didn't sell to a group of people that would keep it up, and it didn't sell to some group of well-heeled enthusiasts or something like that, and convert it into something like what you would see at Motorsports Ranch or tracks like that, which is a closed circuit that relies heavily on memberships to keep the place afloat. Like you pay $1,000 a year, $5,000 a year, whatever your investment is, and you get access to the track and all these other things. But I guess where I'm going with this is that I'm surprised it didn't go that route. But again, there's a lot of things that obviously I'm not aware of that would have gone into not allowing that to take place. And it could be that it was offered up, and after people took a look at what it would cost to keep it running from a overhead standpoint, what's the nut that I got to cover on taxes? What's my payroll? All of that may have ended up being a little bit too much. John's saying that the Melling full set is $500 in Canada. Like I say, man, I don't see those things being bad. All the newer stuff is actually pretty good. So I could never, I wouldn't, since I don't know enough about them, I wouldn't advise against them. I can just tell you what I know works, and what in the scenarios that I know that they have worked in. And I don't think any of the really, really fast guys have made a move to Melling or Johnson. I think all those guys, when the records were set, were all still on stock Hellcat lifters. Oh, Nitro's saying the insurance liability is crazy. I didn't even want to think about that. I mean, that's going to be a number that is altogether scary. When you start looking at the costing of just the equipment that's on site, that'll really start to blow your mind a little bit. The tractors, the draggers, the sprayers, the quads, the scooters to get around the place. Everything that's involved with that track is an expensive piece of equipment. And that's the thing that you just can't understate, and it's easy to do so. But again, for me, it's really more of a shot to the community, and that's what really bums me out. If I struck it big, I would definitely do it, not because I'd want to make money with it, but just because I'd want to do it for the community, because it's a cool town with a lot of really good folks, and they're going to miss it, definitely. So for any of you guys that caught the other video that I put out, so I put out the TRX video, and again, that's George's TRX. He's awesome dude. Let me get that video of the truck. Truly appreciate that, buddy. He's got some really fast Mopars himself, and like I say, the video does not do that truck justice. If you're into the four-wheel drive hot rods, that is the absolute top of the food chain. The interior of that truck looks like a freaking limousine. The color of that, which is I think aqua blue, something like that. He told me what it is. I asked him twice what it was, and I still can't remember exactly. Anyway, I think it's aqua blue. That color in person, under the lights, is just desperately pretty to look at. On that truck, it is the color to get. But, I mean, damn. If it just was a two-wheel drive single cab, always asking for something, aren't I? But that... can't say enough about how pretty that truck is in person. But I'd love for it to be just have a single cab dropped Warlock badging across the deck. That'd be sweet. John said he's also going to check on the Johnson lifters as well. Check those out, and then also make sure when you're looking at those, get a hold of them and verify if you have to have a different length push rod, by the way, whether it's Melling, Johnson. Obviously the Hellcat lifters, you don't have to worry about that, but it's a stock part. But the Melling and the Johnsons, check your push rod length. What the hell was that? Oh, Tuck's saying love the blue on that TRX. Yeah. Nitro Cruz asking if I fixed my red light issue. Hydro blue. There you go. Thank you very much. Yeah, I had to freaking red lit on that Trans Am. So, oh man, and I was working on my light too. Last night, made 3 hits with Chandelier. By the way, it's Revlon has changed their name to Chandelier, keeping with the theme of play on letters in the name of Challenger. But yeah, Chandelier. 1048 on the first hit, 1050 on the second hit, 1053 on that last hit. And I was hoping to I was just going for a light on that thing, on that pass on that thing. And I ripped off a .017 red light, which is funny because the last time I red lit was a .017 red light. What the hell? Anyway, I had just completely screwed that one up. The funny thing is, if you watch the video, I'm stalled up. The yellow light comes on, and I kind of creep it out of the hole. It was just kind of a weird stutter that I was like, I was just trying to cut the light. I should have just lifted and let it rip. It would have actually run a little bit better, but. Anyway, 60 foot was 155. Basically, it was hovering around that 155 mark all night. Density altitude, 24 to 2,600 feet, pretty much all night. Muggy as hell. The car was following the DA, sort of, but it was really more following the humidity. As the humidity went up, the car just got slower. The temperature really didn't change too much. Again, the DA didn't fall a lot, stayed real consistent. But again, as that humidity came up, the car just went slower. Basically fairly predictable. But yeah, 1048 and 2,600 feet. I am real happy with the way that the car ran. And I had played around with the tune just a little bit, just real minor stuff, some knock sensor sensitivity that I figured it was a little bit overly nanny-ish, but based on the data, I could have raised them even more than what I raised them. The car is fine, and the data points to the fact that, I didn't, 93 octane that I'm getting now is actually not too bad, so, all's well on this thing. But again, knock sensor voltage looked good. Every once in a while with these Dodges, there'll be an anomalous spike somewhere, and it can be at partial throttle. But you'll see some kind of a funky spike here and there. The knock sensors on these things are a little bit sketchy. So anyway, I've got all that situated. The car, again, is running great. The only thing that's driving me nuts about this tune is the shift points. The only reason why I bring that up is there might be half a tenth in that thing if I really, and I mean really, got to chasing just to the nth degree shift points. But right now the car's shifting right around 6,300. I'm pretty happy with that. The car seems to be really happy with that. I've tried extending the RPM more, and the car just has not really responded to it. And what's happening is in the lower gears, the car, like say for example on a dyno, and this is why you have to be real careful when you're trying to tune a car, and you're more importantly trying to tune that car's transmission by using peak power numbers and how the car carries power. You've got to find out at what RPM, at that shift point, what does it fall down to? And if you are falling down into a nice fat lumpy part of your torque curve, you're doing good. It can be, kind of scattered in there a little bit, but as long as you're falling into that fat, meaty tabletop of torque that you'll have, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Where guys get it wrong is they'll try to extend that shift point a little bit too far, and then because the car is carrying power, and what you have to understand is if you tabletop horsepower, you are hemorrhaging torque. So if you extend the shift point to basically the time where the car starts to fall off, the shift point's going to fall outside of that torque curve, and so it's not going to have as hard of a hit on the shift. That hard hit helps to propel you forward. So it can be a little bit counterintuitive where you actually, even though the car is making power way out there, you don't want to run the car way out there because it's, again, it's the shape of the curve. When the shape of the curve from your point of view comes up, and you'll see them kind of tabletop like that, you know, that depending on where the shift is going to fall may not be the best place to shift way out there, especially with these, you know, 8-speed, 9-speed, 10-speed, whatever transmissions. It just won't do any good. You've got too much gearing in there. So anyway, I was looking at that. I was thinking, man, I could play around with shift points. Went back, looked at data. I'm like, yeah, everything looks pretty good. No knock retard. Car ran great through the back half of the track. No funkiness. All the knock sensor voltage looked good. So no reason to raise an eyebrow there. Everything looked fine. So basically, it's gonna get sent with whatever it's got in it now into the fall. So we're just gonna keep running it. And she's gonna hold what she's got into the fall. If I need to make any changes to shift points, I may make them then, but like I say, right now, everything seems to be working pretty well with it. Let's see. Oh yeah, Smoking at 5 saying Spokane Raceway closed its doors this year, but a local Indian tribe casino bought it to lease it to run it next year. Very cool. Nitro's asking, could you play with the timing to help with excessive water grains? You know, there's been some guys play with that. I didn't have any luck playing with that at all. As a matter of fact, one of the weird things about running these cars in a lot of humidity, you would think that ramping up the timing could help, but the problem is that you've got a dense air charge, but that air charge is carrying a lot of water with it, and it's displacing oxygen. So, but it's still a pretty significant air charge. Ramping up the timing isn't gonna help basically that flame front carry faster to your, 10 to 20% past top dead center peak pressure point. Anyway, I've tried it with my car. It just didn't respond to it. In fact, it didn't respond to it at all. When I had that car on it's been about a year-ish ago. Anyway, I had thrown some tunes together, and weirdly enough, the tune that made the most power had the tune that on the track had shown the best mile an hour and best ET was the tune, presumably making the most power, was the tune that had the least amount of timing in it. And again, that was it last summer? About the beginning of last summer, like June of last year, I was playing around with some parameters like that. And what was also interesting is that I was directly comparing that car, not only my car with the extra timing, but comparing it directly to another car, which is more of a control for stock boost Hellcats. And that car has across the board at least 1 to 2 degrees more timing that I run. And there was absolutely no difference in that car versus my car going through the traps. The only real difference with timing, by the way, when it comes to Hellcats, really only comes in super low density altitude conditions. You have to be in that 1.45 to 1.5 range on your airflow. And where I'm going with this is about 4,600 to, $6,000. The timing table just starts dumping timing. It's a nice progression, and then you get down to the last 2 rows, and it's like a group of 4 cells or 6 cells, maybe it's 9 cells, that it hemorrhages timing, and it's right at a shift point. And what I do is I even out the drop. I don't hold timing, but I just even out the drop and kind of chill it out, and it ends up being in like 1 cell, it'll be 2 degrees of timing. Everywhere else is like 1 degree of timing that I'll throw at it in those cells. And again, the main reason why I'm doing that is because you could you could feel the car lay over when the air charge was that good. It would go first to second, second to third, third to fourth. But you would feel like on the fifth to sixth, it would go fourth to fifth. It go fourth, fifth, and then the car would just kind of, and it would just lay over. It would sound, it just didn't sound good. I threw the extra timing in there. The car picked up a little bit, but it sounded better. It felt better going through the traps. It felt like it should, I should say, going through the traps where it just wasn't laying over and then coming back. And what was weird with that is that I was going in on the tuning side and I was looking at every little thing that I could find that had nothing to do with timing in that range. I was trying to find anything on a data log that would say, okay, yeah, you definitely need to not have that timing there because of, spikes or anything like that. I never could find that. So I was going to throw some more timing at it. But in this case, I really wasn't throwing timing at it. I was basically just evening the timing table out, interpolating the timing table, if you will. And it just comes out that it's adding 2 degrees of timing, but it's in a very specific spot. And it's like right out of shift. It's a little bit after a shift point, actually. Weird stuff. You get into this tuning thing and you'll find that there are it's funny in a way. There's like little Easter eggs, but it's like little fail eggs here and there. One of the weird things that I found was a torque limiter table for fifth gear. And this is something that was bugging the living hell out of me, is that I would be cruising along and even at partial throttle, it would go 1 to 2, cool, 2 to 3, cool, 3 to 4, cool, 4 to 5. And even at partial throttle, it would just lay over in fourth to fifth. I'm going, what the hell? And then it would and it wasn't like a wide open throttle only type thing, because if you're wide open throttle and you weren't in crazy air, it would just be banging gears all the way through. And it was weird. It was a strange torque limit. Anyway, Hellcats Red Eyes don't have it. And it's just a weird, like an Easter fail in the tune. There's a couple others like that. But anyway, just again, something that you notice if you're in and around this stuff for any real length of time. You go in and find the stuff, and you start playing with things. One thing at least with my car, talking about, things that you do that didn't work out. I was playing around with the pedal follower part of the tune. And if you're not familiar with what that means, when you are driving your car, it's a driver command torque. It's what your foot does with the pedal versus what the throttle body does in terms of how much it opens and closes. And you would be surprised as to how often you are getting wide open throttle, but like for the Hellcats, your bypass is hanging over. Or for you 392 guys and 5.7 guys, you're at partial throttle, but you're wide open with the actual throttle blade, but you're just not commanding wide open throttle timing values. There's still, less aggressive timing values until you put your foot more to the floor, and then it starts throwing timing into the thing. And that's playing with some efficiencies and doing some other things. But that's one of the reasons why these new vehicles are, pretty rowdy sometimes. Well, another side of that is you'd be surprised how often you go wide open and the throttle blade itself doesn't kick over all the way. It'll kind of modulate itself over, and it times into wide open throttle. Well, I jumped right in the middle of that and started playing with that follower. Now on the 392 cars, that will make that thing 60 foot like a banshee. If you never saw Quick Bricks Charger launch, it launches like a Hellcat. It comes out of the hole mad as hell. But the funny thing is, when I was playing around with that with my car, it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. I had it to where because right now, if you look at the data log, there's like this, you can see the blade kind of slowly opening, even if you go snap the throttle wide open. I had it following literally train tracks in the data log, following the throttle body, following the pedal. As fast as you could hit the pedal, it would open up that fast. Made no difference. Boost response, absolutely zero. And so that answered some questions for me in terms of, would a throttle body help? Well, I've kind of done the equivalent of adding a throttle body, if you will, at least down low, by having that pedal follower snap the throttle open like immediately, and didn't make any difference as far as KPA, which is just to say it didn't make a difference as far as manifold pressure is concerned in the data logs. So anyway, just kind of a neat Easter egg type of thing to talk about in the tune. There's a lot of things that you think are going to do well, you think are going to make power, and they don't, or going to pick up ET or anything like that. And then there's other things where like, that won't do anything. And it's like, ooh, that worked, So there's still a lot of little tricks in there floating around. Let's see. Oh, Tux is hanging out. Got the PS3 rolling. Slash is saying hello. Don saying hello, Mr. B. Hello, Donald. Oh, Nitro Crew saying it works with nitromethane. Just curious if it was similar to gasoline tuning. Not so much, not at this level. Mainly because, we're not running like a 3-to-1 or a 2-to-1 like nitro. And in that case, you're carrying a lot of your own oxygen with you. In this case, man, like I say, we've tried. What's funny, the cool thing about it is I had a really good control car. And a really good driver in that, where I know that if he's behind the wheel and he's there the same night I am, I knew that I would have a direct line of sight to what his car would do versus what my car would do. His car is incredibly consistent, just like mine is. And so if I see a gain and I'm creeping up on his numbers, then I know that I'm going in the right direction. And the funny thing is that my car was consistently as quicker than the cars with more timing in them. And as I added timing to it, my car really didn't change. And the other thing is that it was weird that it didn't even pick up any mile an hour anywhere, which I thought was really weird. But again, it is what it is. It's what you end up playing with. If I had a higher compression engine, in other words, if I'm making 10 or 11 pounds of boost, but instead of 9.5 to 1, I'm running like 11 to 1 in a different fuel, then it may have made a difference at that point. But the way that it sat, it just really didn't. Chuck's in saying he's late, but he's here. Very nice. ENG Ali Bakir, am I saying that right? I hope I'm not tearing that up. Transmission tuning. He's got a question about transmission. He says, transmission tune make a noticeable difference to the performance if his engine is already tuned? Yes. I have been singing the praises of transmission tuning. That is where all of your ET performance, that is where all of your objective drivability is found. It's all in the transmission tune. Engine tuning's easy. There's nothing really to it, but it's getting that transmission tune just right that can really change the complexion of how that car runs. Remember, the engine can make all the power in the world, but if you don't transmit that to the rear wheels the right way, it's not going to be as good of a driving experience. So yes, get your trans tuned now. Sad's checking in saying just bought a 2009 Challenger SRT8 6-speed, 34,000 miles. Very nice, and I love it. Is there preventative mods you recommend? Change all of the fluids, change the plugs. even with that low of mileage, change everything that you can change, because it's just the one thing you need to do. Everything else, though, nah, you'll be in good shape. You're good. Do the normal stuff, inspect the belts and hoses and things like that. Remember that, you got 12-year-old parts that are on that car. You need to take a look at that and make sure that they're good. Mighty SRT8 saying 6'1 versus 6'4. It depends on the arena that you're looking at the thing in. If you are looking to have a car that's really fast right out of the box and you don't want to have to throw any money at it, the 6'4 is a pretty safe bet. The 6'1 is more old school. What you see is what you get with the 6'4. And if a move to a 370 gear with a Nag 1 can be a lot of fun, but I don't recommend going absolutely bananas crazy with a 6'1 trying to chase 6'4s. It's a tough fight that is incredibly difficult to win. Love them both, though. Smoking saying the Sniper, Joker, or Warlock are good in A-cams, but will they work okay if I add supercharger later? Yes, they will. Which one would be best with future boost? Depends on what you're going to do with the boost and what kind of fuel you plan on running. How much boost do you plan on running? And what are you going to be doing with the car? Are you going to be going to the drag strip? Are you going to be playing around on the street? Adding a supercharger. We're talking positive displacement, or are we talking about a pro charger style? I don't like any of those blowers with a positive displacement supercharger. I'm sorry, I don't like any of those cams with a PD blower. I would prefer to have something with a wider lobe separation angle, primarily to give you some boost response. Those cams have tight lobe separation angles. For a Hemi, they're tight. And I don't really like going after big numbers with a PD blower with a tight LSA, because they can be kind of soft. The wider lobe separation angle is going to give you better boost response, and it's going to help to extend the RPM out a little bit. If you're going centrifugal supercharger, though, yeah, you're going to want to go with something that's got a tighter LSA. It's going to make more torque through the mid-range, which is where you need a boost anyway, because you're just not making any manifold pressure leading up to that, and you've got a centrifugal supercharger, so it's going to push peak torque out anyway. So yeah, it's when you tighten them up. And so yeah, in that case, I would probably go, depending on the size of the engine, I'd probably go with the Warlock, honestly. If you're a 6'4", or like a stroker version, anything 392, I'd go with that Warlock. Warlock's a good cam. Got a very similar cam to that went into a 392 swapped 69 Roadrunner, and by all accounts, it runs great. It sounds good. It's a bit more of a sedate version of the Joker, but it sounds good. And in that 392, but again, it's in a 69 Roadrunner, no crossover pipe, with like Super 40 Flowmasters, so it's kind of quiet. They're working on some stuff with the clutch on that thing, but preliminary driving is saying that thing runs its ass off. Mike saying his RT Challenger has an open diff in it right now. If I wanted just a little bit more fun on the street and limited slip, what do you recommend I swap to? If your RT has a 262 in it, go to a 392 go to a 309 out of a 392. If your car's got an 8-speed, it should just swap right in and you'll be in pretty good shape with that. If it's a Nag 1, I would say go with a 370 gear and just know that it's going to be a little bit more buzzy going down the freeway, but it'd be a lot of fun to drive. So that's what I would do. 370, although it's going to cost a lot more than a 390 if you've got an 8-speed. 390, why do I keep saying that? 309 if you got an 8-speed. You can put the 370 in, which is basically, it's the stock gear out of a if it's a 8-speed automatic. That 370 is the stock gear out of a Hellcat manual transmission car. You can definitely go that route too. Oh, Hilton's asking about the tune. Sovereign saying, hey, what's up, man? Hilton Mode saying, gonna get a tune on the Dakota ASAP 265s all right for tire sizes? Yeah, you can turn those into smoke easy. Sovereign saying 6.4 would be my pick. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to pick against the 6.4. It just does everything so well. Nitro's asking, at what point is closing the gap on spark plugs with increased boost necessary or not at all? If you're going to increase the boost, go ahead and just tighten up the spark gap. I like to see 25. That is, in an NGK TR7, which is what most guys are going to end up running anyway. 25 will get you about where you need to be. I've seen some real high boost applications blow out the spark at 27. 25, I don't think I've ever seen anybody blow out a spark there. I've certainly never seen anybody blow out a spark at 22. So if you're really talking about spooling it up, I would say 22. And that would be, 18-ish pounds of boost and above. I'd go 22. Somewhere around 15, 16, I would say 25 would be good. 27, you probably still live there, but that's where I would go with that. Those would be kind of my boost numbers. Mighty SRT8 saying, I eat 6.4s all day with a 6.1 tune only. Good deal. I love that. I eat 6.4s all day with a 6.1 with just a tune. Man, I tell you what, we need to have you working for Dodge then, because there is a huge power gap between those two cars. And if all you have is a tune on your car, then man, they must have really screwed up on the stock tune on that 6.1. I've seen a lot of 6.1s and a lot of 6.4s on the dyno too, so good deal. I'm happy for you. Jimmy saying, hello, good sir. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well too, Jimmy. Sovereign said, I picked the 6.4 because it's all NA, doesn't need power mods and less things to break. The 6.4 is a good platform, man. I've had a lot of success with it. I've run dang near 10s in good air with a stock unopened 6.4. So stock cam, stock throttle body, stock intake, stock manifolds with just a cat delete pipe, which didn't help it at all. And a little bit of weight reduction. That car went 1125 with me driving it. And Shalandra, hell, that car went 1130s with a stock cam with just a cleaned up intake and a ported throttle body. So that was at full weight. That car was a pig when I ran 1130s and 1140s with it. So, yeah, the 6.4 is a lot of fun on the drag strip. 6.4 is a ball on the street. It's just the platform that it's attached to makes it, from a roll, it's not the best. That car is about as aerodynamic as a freaking barn. It is just not going to carry that well up top, but does great from a dig, and those things are a lot of fun. Chuck saying, I think he thinks his 2020 RT Plus shaker has a 309 gear. It probably does. If it's an RT Plus with the 6-speed Tremec, the clutch is soft but shifts great. Oh, then no, you've got you probably have a 390 gear, not a 309 in that thing, would be my guess. Not a 309, not in a 6-speed manual. Kay's saying he's got a 6.1 and he likes the 6.1, but they're great cars. He's got supercharged 540 rear wheel horsepower. Get that thing to the track. Would love to get some numbers out of that car. And one of the things that I've talked to a lot of guys about, the 6.1 versus 6.4 thing comes up all the time. And what I'll tell folks is this: the 6.1 is kind of like Dodge's version of an LS engine. There's nothing to it. There's no variable intake runners. There's no variable cam. There's none of that stuff to clutter up that car in terms of just being a raw performance platform. When you start modifying and throwing cams and blowers and everything else at 392s, I mean, you make a boatload of power, don't get me wrong, but I always felt like it took something away from that car. And the funny thing is that with Shalandra, I had a guy that just, I've never really understood. This guy was a little bit different. Let's put it that way. And I ran him at Mopar Fest like 4 years ago. Had to be 4 years ago. And yeah, it'd been about 4 years ago. And he had a Pro-Charged Challenger running up against Shalandra, which was an NA car. And what I found was funny is that the guy literally beat me by a car length every time we ran. And he was elated that he won a race against a non-supercharged car. And it's like he'd go out of his way to run me. And that went great. Sorry. It's kind of funny. Oh my God. That went great until he popped his motor. So he gets done with the pass, and on D-cell, I don't know what happened. I think he popped a ringland or something. Anyway, all hell broke loose inside that engine, and that car went home on a trailer. I'm not saying, I'm not like, ha ha, you know, I'm not doing that. I mean, I've been racing for my entire life, and I know that things happen. Things happen to everybody, and karma is a biatch, and you don't ever want to stir that pot. But when you start looking at what you can do with some of these cars with superchargers and everything else, I will argue that these cars are a lot of fun the way that they come from the factory. Gear them, get them spooled up with gearing and all of that. Put a blower on them if you want, but just make sure you're having fun with it. You know, a lot of guys get caught up in numbers. They get caught up in a lot of things that are counterproductive to just the fact of having, or just the point of having fun with these things. So that's why you always hear me, somebody tells me a number that the car put down. It's like, okay, we'll get it to the track. Put it on a tire, get it to the track, let's see what it runs. Because it's hard to quantify a horsepower number. And the reason why I say that is because if you're around this stuff long enough, you figure out pretty quickly that it's very easy to manipulate numbers, and it's very easy to quote numbers that are not standardized. Like, for example, uncorrected numbers in the wintertime, or you get a barometric pressure, you get your weather station, and the barometer starts reading numbers like 28 or 26 inches of mercury, which basically means it thinks it thinks you're sitting on the top of Mount Everest, and so your correction factors are all crazy. I've seen it all, guys. I really have, and that's why I always say, man, that's a really good number, but you got to qualify it. Like, what part of the world do you live in? Is that corrected at 5,000 feet in Denver, or is that corrected at 0 feet in, Shreveport, Louisiana? It all makes a difference, but I have a ball with all of them. And I've driven everything that's out there, whether it's, ultra high horsepower or just a regular supercharged 6.1 or a 5.7. And they're all a lot of fun to me. I love all of them. And that's the thing. I am not impressed, and I am not bored by any of them. I take them all at face value, and again, I've never been not entertained. Buddy's saying factory freak. I will say one thing about the 6.1 though. There is nothing more visually satisfying to me than the look of the 6.1 underneath the hood of a car. I love the big old school, aluminum intake that sits on that thing. It's just a pretty thing to look at. So if nothing else, just from a feel good standpoint, that 6.1 kind of gets the nod for me. Oh, yeah, Sovereign saying if you had a 392, leave it stock, just have fun with it. Yeah, that's what a lot of guys do. Chuck saying Dyno isn't God, the track the track reality is. Crazy saying he just got his 2017 Charger RT. Very nice. Jimmy's saying he's got one getting put together for his Scaddy. Can't wait to get it there. Very nice. Keep us posted on your success. ENG is saying, well, I enjoy my naturally aspirated 6.4 sound more than supercharged 6.2. Maybe I'm too old for that whiny thing. Look, there's a lot of guys that like the NA stuff, and look, I'm one of them. I love the NA cars. They're really quick to react. They're snappy, and just driving the thing around town, you would notice a difference between the two. The big difference between the Hellcat and a 6.4, just driving them around, especially a stock Hellcat, is you'll find that the 392 is just snappier. It's got a little bit more pop to it. You know, you get into it, the throttle a little bit, and it's rump. You know, it's just peppier is I guess the best way to put it. Playful can be another way you can describe it. They've got all this bottom end torque. They're so snappy, and it makes them very fun to drive. The 6.2 is a little bit different because it's not that you have to wait for the supercharger to kick in. That's a fallacy. It doesn't work like that. The supercharger is, you tip into the throttle enough, bypass closes, it's making boost, and you are gone. But the thing is that up to about half throttle, the 6.4 is actually snappier and is actually making more power because it's a bigger engine with more compression ratio. And again, until you start making a significant amount of boost to the tune of about 4 pounds of boost, really, with that 6.2, you're making less power than the 392 is, regardless of RPM. So, you know, and that's evidenced by, you know, line them up, give the Hellcat owner a black key or put the car into 500 horse mode and run it and see how it reacts. You'll find out pretty quickly that 392 will more than hold its own. In fact, Riley with RP Productions, when he had his Hellcat, we ran our cars, his Hellcat in 500 horse mode versus my car, and he matched one of my best passes of the day at an 11.4. So, you know, they're a lot of fun. I enjoy them. So I'm saying electric is coming. Yes, it is. And it's going to smoke pretty much anything gas powered. It already does by the looks of it. Can't wait to see what Dodge drops in 3 years. So you've got we're already in, guys, we're already into the 2022 model year. Just know that coming into it. So you've got 2023 for year over year today. And then year over year 2024, which I believe will be when they're going to release that thing. So what it looks like right now, if they're going off the STLA large platform, twin motor, 120 kV battery, it'll be about 880, just shy of 900 horsepower. And that is to say that it will be, the way that it sits now, less than the Plaid edition. But I'm sure that Stellantis will not leave well enough alone, and there will be versions of that platform that will be going after, and I mean looking right at you, Plaid version, Plaid edition, whatever, Tesla. They'll be looking directly at that platform to basically dethrone it. But guys, they got a lot to dethrone. Have you seen what the Plaid runs? Have you seen what that car runs? Nobody's thrown it up yet, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you. that Plaid Edition, that $130,000 Plaid Edition, which is actually kind of a bargain when you hear this number, that $130,000 Plaid Edition went 920s at 150 miles an hour. That was like its pivot number. Drag Times, I think, was who drug one out there and made like 8 passes with the thing. And until they were rained out, the car was going 920s at like 140 all day long. So, yeah, 920s. And the reason why I say it's a bargain, if you look just from just a sheer performance point of view, well, how much would you have to sink into a car to get it to run 920s? A lot. It ain't doing it naturally aspirated, I'll tell you that. So anyway, yeah, 920s out of that Plaid Edition. So Dodge is going to have to do something equally as nasty, and I'm sure that they will. But 920s is the number right now. HE37. People complain that the 6.4 doesn't take well to mods. The 6.4 is really well optimized. I don't understand why people would complain because that less performance was left on the table. That's been my entire point. Guys, look. Here's what I want y'all to think about. Corvette. Camaro. 6.2 liter, 455 horsepower. Your Scat Pack makes, and I want you to think about this for a minute. This is out of the LT platform too, by the way. The LS3, which is typically what people will sit around the campfire and talk about, makes 20 horsepower less than that, to the tune of 435. Making the advertised number out of the 6.4 liter, which is basically the same displacement. You're really starting to split hairs here. 50 more horsepower out of roughly the same size engine. 50 advertised more horsepower. 50. That is a cam swap, right? Isn't that the cam swap? Like a big cam swap for an LS3? Does it even get to 485 horsepower? Like net ratings? I don't even know if it does. So I want you to think about this. Your Scat Pack makes 30 more horsepower than a freaking Corvette. It's hard to get more out of it when it already has that much in it. They say it doesn't take well to mods. Jesus Christ. Instead of looking at it like Chevy detuned their engine. Chevy could have made it make the same amount of power as the 6.4. They didn't. It makes less than. And by the way, it's a significant difference of less than. Let me tell you how different of less than this less than is. When you compare a Scat Pack, a walking around, run-of-the-mill, whatever the hell Scat Pack, not talking about mods, not talking about anything else. That car weighs 100 pounds more than a Camaro does. The Camaro at 455 horsepower and with a neutered 270 whatever gear that they put in the thing with the 8-speed will not outrun the Scat Pack in the quarter mile. I don't know what it does from a roll, from an aerodynamic point of view. It doesn't really matter anymore because where it counts on a drag strip, tire for tire, it loses every one of those races, or at least a vast majority of them. Now, that being said, can you mod them to make a boatload of power? You damn right you can. There's a lot of deep 10-second Camaros running around out there, but they weigh significantly less than their Challenger counterparts. There is a lot more to choose from in terms of intake manifolds and aftermarket support for that car. And they re-gear them and they spin them to the moon. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with that car, especially if you don't mind having an intake sticking out of your hood. But it's not a better car because of that. And it's not that it takes better to modifications either. It's that there's more aftermarket support for that platform, even in the LT. I mean, hell, you've got 2 intake manifolds available for the 6.4, or for the Hemi in general, from the aftermarket. How many are available from the aftermarket for any of the LS, LT, L whatever platforms? A lot. But it doesn't really even matter, because Camaro, from a sales point of view, that modability, that potential, that upshot for modifications is not translating into sales at all. Like, it is not translating into sales to the tune of, are we even going to see an LS powered hot rod ever again? Probably not. It's all going to be electric. So, is it going to be the e-Marrow? I don't know. Maybe it is. And maybe that's what it's going to take. But I still don't see that car doing all that well. I'm just going to start talking about, now I'm talking about sales figures of that Camaro versus the Challenger. I just don't see it doing that well. Chevrolet will not make a car that will be, it won't have the cool factor. It won't have the look, and it won't be better than the Mustang, it being a Mustang, and it won't be better than the Challenger, it being a muscle car. So, Chevrolet's really got to get their act together. Their image is getting really, how do I put this? Very plain vanilla-y in a way, very sanitized. I want to see Chevrolet act like freaking Chevrolet. Like, get aggressive with engine combinations. Get aggressive with their pony car, with the Camaro. Do something with the Vet. Well, they already did something with the Vet. Yeah, so there's that. But anyway, you get what I'm saying, but we're about to lose that platform, which is a real shame, or at least it seems like we're about to lose the platform. Nitro's asking if I agree with the quarter mile math as a good indicator of horsepower by using weight of the vehicle and the mile per hour it achieves. Kinda. What a lot of that math was derived from was known values in cars with 4-speed manual transmissions or 3-speed automatics or power glides. With the modern transmission that you have today, there's going to be a little bit more of a fudge factor there. It's just the efficiency of the transmission on the front end, plus, or I should say, the gear multiplication of the transmission on the front end, coupled with the higher efficiency of the transmissions on the back end, makes that number a little bit higher than what it should be. Now, as far as a percentage goes, it's going to depend on the transmission, the platform that we're talking about, etc. But, it's not uncommon to get adjusted horsepower figures of cam 392s to be somewhere based on weight and mile an hour, floating around like 580, 590, or 600 even. So a lot of that has to do with the transmission and just how it puts power to the ground. When you're able to take a 4,600 pound car and go 121 miles an hour in the quarter, that's going to equate to a pretty big number that, that car would not probably be able to do that without the use of that 8-speed automatic. But for the most part, for the old school stuff, it's pretty accurate. Oh, Sovereign saying if you had a chance to own one final V8, it would be the 392. It's the cool choice, I will tell you that. Jimmy saying the Mustang Cobra Jet 1400 is an absolute monster. Yes, it is. Really odd hearing a burnout with no roar of an engine note. So, yeah, a lot of them are kind of creepy. That one, the Kim Block's E Mustang Drift thing, that's another 1400 horse car. It's weird, but it's going to be normal after a while, and you're going to learn to associate that whipping, like really quick hard whine of an electric motor. you'll start to be able to tell, okay, I know what that is. I know what that is. That thing's making a lot of power. It's just retuning and re-gearing your ears to understand what you're hearing and what you're listening to. But yeah, I will admit that watching one of those things do a burnout is weird. But I'll tell you what, though, it's not altogether different than the first time I heard a turbo car doing a burnout, and that turbo car was just really quiet. So it's just like, God, that's so weird. You don't hear anything. Yeah, it's because I had a freaking turbo that was shutting it up. Sovereign Knight saying 1.8 seconds. I think that's the 0 to 60. The plaid. I would like to see the plaid on a tire, because they were running the coefficient of drag, or the CF, the coefficient of friction of the tires that the Tesla is running will physically not allow it to go 1.8 0 to 60 unless it is on a prepared surface. But I would like to see that car, or the Hammerhead, whatever the Dodge is going to call their car. I call it that because that's what Mr. Kaniskas was referencing, the fish. You know, Dodge has the Barracuda, the Cuda, you know, that now it's going to be the Hammerhead shark. I don't know. Anyway, I would like to see that car on a tire, on a prepared surface, and just let her rip. That thing is nasty. Smoking's asking, Mr. Mason, what future car would get you to sell your Hellcat? A hybrid Viper, maybe. Maybe. Actually, it would. What would it take to get me out of my Hellcat? Let me tell you how hard it would be to get me out of my Hellcat. The Hellcat, to me, represents all the cars I've ever owned and all the cars I've ever wanted to own, all wrapped up into one package. So it would be incredibly difficult for me to let the Hellcat go for something, because it would, whatever I would let Chandelier go for would have to be something that is altogether better at being nostalgic or cool, or being that car for me. So let me explain what I mean by that. The Challenger is a big car, and I like big cars. I cannot lie. But I like a bigger car. I'm more attracted to the B bodies than I am to the E body Mopars. I'm more attracted to the E bodies than I am to like a Mustang of the same era. So that'll kind of give you an idea of what I like, what my eye finds attractive. I like the C body Mopars, like the big Fury 3s. I am a huge Mark III, Mark IV Lincoln fan. As weird as it may sound, that hot rod is super cool in my eyes. So to me, Mercury Cougar. I was always a Cougar guy, not a Mustang guy, unless we're talking about maybe a 65 Mustang Fastback. A little bit different idea there, but for me, if I liked a car, it would be the 71 Mach 1, you know, the bigger body car. So you kind of get an idea for what I'm talking about. The Challenger picks up on that for me because visually it is a bigger car. It is a more comfortable car. It makes a lot of bottom end power, and it doesn't have to handle well because that big car kind of gives me that Mark III presence with the luxury of the thing on the inside. I've got every car I could ever really kind of want in that one car, with the only exception being, well, what if I wanted something that's a little bit more nimble, or manual transmission or something like that? Foxy. So, you know, if you want something that does Mustang things, you need to have a Mustang of some kind, and that's what that car does. That car doesn't have to be fast. That car is just a riot to play with and drive. And, you know, when I was getting the bias sorted out with the proportioning valve and everything today, I was out having a ball with that car. Nowhere near as fast, but it didn't have to be because it feels like it's hauling ass just because it's a twitchy little thing. And I love that. Of course, I've had the car forever, so that helps too. But again, for me, it's a lot more based around nostalgia, how it makes me feel. and just how cool I feel like the car is in the way that it gets down the road and what all that it does. How does it entertain me? Because at the end of the day, these are entertainment dollars that I'm spending. So what would it take? So an e-Viper wouldn't do anything for me. Now, a Hellcat powered Viper with an 8-speed automatic option, that's a completely different story. This new Hammerhead thing could be the answer to that question. I don't know. I've never owned an electric car, but there's no reason why that electric car can't be endearing. In fact, a lot of the convenience of an electric car starts to become comforting in a way. As somebody that goes to the drag strip a lot, let me explain what I mean by that. I'll offer this to you. With an electric car, I don't have to worry about blowing up a transmission. I don't have to worry about ventilating a block. I don't have to worry about oil changes. I don't have to worry about belts. I don't have to worry about really any general maintenance to speak of, aside from washing, waxing, and generally keeping the thing looking cute. Keeping tires on it's probably going to be a challenge. But the thing is that I don't have to worry about fuel quality. And this is the one thing that I love. In fact, I don't have to worry about fuel quality at all because the car's not going to care what octane electricity I put in it, right? One of the guys last night, this was funny, and this happens every time you go to the drag strip. I'll get a question like, is it running E85? No, it's not running E85. Why not? What do you mean, why not? Because I don't want to run E85. I want to run pump gas. Would be easy to do. Really? How? Well, you just put a booster pump on it. Bad move. That's not how you do 85. What injectors they come with stock? 65, 650s. Oh, you could. There's a lot of people that think they know what they're talking about, and they clearly don't. And that's why I'm just, now anymore, I'll carry a conversation for a minute, and then I'll figure out who I'm dealing with, and it's like, never mind. Yeah, you're exactly right. 1 + 3 = 17. Carry on, buddy. Buy one and do it yourself. It cracks me up. Anyway, the big question though always is, are you running E85? And I'll bring that to you because it's an important question, because E85 is kind of a cheat code for tuners. And one of the things that you'll run into all the time when it comes to making more power is the fuel that you have and what it can manage in terms of cylinder pressures. 93 is limited. E85 has a much higher ceiling that you can play with than the 93 octane. But the biggest issue here is all of the issues you run into with E85. It eats up everything that it seems to touch. Can tear up injectors, especially if you're running the stock style injectors as opposed to a Bosch injector. There's all kinds of little headaches that you can run into with that. But again, you don't have to worry about any of that with an electric vehicle. And that's a comforting thing. I know that I can take that car out, beat it to death, and it doesn't matter. I'll never have to worry about the breakages that you would have to worry about with gas or alcohol or whatever you're fueling the thing with car. Also like the idea that you can fill it up from the house. That's another option that you have. So there's a lot of convenience to me about the EVs that I do find on one hand comforting. And it's a weird way to put it, but for somebody that does go to the track a lot, that EV satisfies a lot of the anxiety that you have as a racer. And again, that's fuel quality, breakage, fuel range, for example. Okay, so the funny thing, people will this is so weird. So people will talk about EVs and worry about range. Modern EVs, this latest crop of EVs, range ain't the thing you got to worry about if you're just going to the drag strip. And it could be an hour and a half away. It really doesn't matter. that's you're only talking about 60 miles. You could drive an hour and a half to the track, make probably 5 passes, 6 passes out of the thing, and drive it home. Can you do that on E85? Can you, with a full tank of gas, drive an hour? Let's just say it's an hour away or an hour and a half away. Drive that far, which is 60 miles, roughly, say 70 miles, so 140-mile round trip. Can you make that on E85? Can you make your hits, your 5 hits? We're gonna stretch it to 5 hits here, and then drive it home on a full tank of E85? No, you can't. So I'm confused by why there's an issue with range. But anyway, that's one of the things that I see with this, is that so much of what makes going to the drag strip an anxious event, the EV does away with, which is another reason why I love the Hellcat so much. Talking about what car would get me out of the Hellcat. I have had a lot of different cars over the years, and I've raced a lot of different cars over the years. I've driven a lot of different cars over the years down the drag strip. One thing I will tell you about the Hellcat is that they are heavy. Of course they're heavy, but they're built like a tank. And they will take what most people would consider abuse and treat it like it's normal use. And that is one of the things that is so endearing about the Hellcat, that in the form that I have my car in now, barring just a horrible tank of gas, I don't have anything to worry about. It is going to just keep doing what it does over and over and over again, which again makes it act a lot like an EV. See, here's what you got to remember about the Hellcat, especially the way that I've got mine set up. It goes down the track just like an EV. It is a very similar driving experience to an EV. It has basically all of its torque down low, and it goes 1050s at 100 and basically 130 miles an hour in the heat that I was running on last night. That is identical in terms of quarter mile performance to the e-tron GT. Basically, that thing runs, well, 1090s, but you get the idea, at roughly 126 miles an hour. And the Taycan runs 1050s at 130 miles an hour. So it's identical to the two hot rods, the hot rod offerings from Porsche and from Audi. No, it won't come anywhere near a Plaid edition, but my car will never make enough power to be a 920, and it never was meant to be. That's why when the question of is it on E85 comes up, it's like, no. Because the minute that car goes on E85, the way that I see it, if it's not running deep 9s or high 8s, it's like, well, are you getting everything out of the car that you put into it? I don't know. Anyway, just an observation. Oh, Sovereign's saying 45 crank. Correct. 45 correct based on SAE J1307 standards. And that is where they actually have somebody certify the number. If not, then it'd be basically 500. ENG saying it's going to be satisfying to make an electric performance car with engine sound coming from the speaker. My engine sound would be the car sound from the Jetsons. Chuck's saying, why mod a scat pack? It's already awesome. That's what Chuck's saying exactly. Oh, Chuck's saying his RT Shaker has room for some growth, but it's pretty fast as it is. Yeah, they are. Jordan Dennis is saying, are small 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 V8 engines worth building for street racing purposes? Damn right they are. You ever heard of a 4.8 LS with a big single turbo just slapping folks around? Happens to happen all the time. 4.6, the Cobra motors were good. They were fun. The 4.7, Probably not that one, but the 4.8 LS does pretty good. That's a fun little engine. The 4.6, I mean, I'll tell you this, there's those engines, by the way, the 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8, the intermediate size V8 sound the prettiest. That's one of the prettiest sounding engines. Rob's asking, how much nitrous can you add to a motor without tuning it? Completely depends on the motor. Depends on a lot of things. Wet kit, I know, is a lot of variables, but let's say you purchase a new vehicle. There's no tuning available, but can you buy nitrous kits? You could. I would say 0 is the number, but should you choose to put a 50 dry shot on it, you might be okay with that. But it'd have to be a real rudimentary 50 shot, like way before the throttle body type of a deal. You're just basically filling up, the plenum. You're not doing direct injection or anything like that. You'd probably get away with a 50 shot, but I just wouldn't. The problem is modern engines make a lot more power than their older predecessors, but the metallurgy hadn't really changed. So you're already making all of this new power, but you're not really working with better block material, better piston material. It's just you're not working with that. So, if you're making, let's say, for example, if you're making 500 horsepower, then a 50 shot's only 10%, probably won't be outside of the range of what that engine can handle. If your car is making 300 horsepower, you hit it with a 50 shot, might be a little bit tough. Now, if you're hitting it with a wet shot, changes things up a little bit, but the problem you run into with a wet shot is always going to be distribution of the fuel. I don't like to say that a wet shot is safer. I like to say that if it's done right, it can be a little bit safer, but again, you're talking about intake manifolds that really weren't designed to also carry liquid, which is what the fuel is, really more designed to carry just air. So you'll probably have a little bit better distribution with just a dry shot than you would with a wet shot. But keep the wet shot small, and I'd say 75 at that point. But again, don't quote me on that because every engine's a little bit different. It depends on how you feed the nitrous in, when you hit the nitrous. There's a lot of variables out there, but I will tell you that I would not run a 100 shot with no tuning. That's just a little bit too much. Normal nitrous tuning, that you initially take 1 or 2 degrees of timing out to start with, and then some guys will do for every 50 horsepower you take out a degree of timing. That's pretty good too. Other guys will do a degree of timing for every 100 horsepower. It depends on the fuel that you're running, but yeah, you pull 2 degrees of timing, and then for every 100 degrees, or for every 100 horsepower after that, you pull a degree of timing. Usually it gets you pretty close. It's still basically a degree for every 50 at that point. Chuck saying, are the EVs going to be called whisper wagons? Maybe. I like that though. That's pretty awesome. When electric racing becomes the norm, I can easily see some batteries exploding or cars catching on fire. Here's Hilton saying electric Porsches sound like spaceships. You're damn right they do. So one of the with electric stuff, the issue is usually the speed controller. The speed controller is the thing that is more or less the rheostat, if you will. Like if you're thinking of like a ceiling fan, the dial that you turn to make the ceiling fan go faster or slower, that's basically what a speed controller does in a nutshell. It's oversimplification, but it gives you an idea. Those things have to handle a lot of amperage, and when they fail, it's because they're incapable of managing the type of amperage that those motors are trying to draw. So back in the day, when I used to live in San Francisco, up and down 280, you would see, and you go up into the hills and up into the mountains, like up into La Honda and like over by Half Moon Bay and all that stuff. You'd see these guys running around with these the Tesla coupes, and neat little car, he's zipping around. But the problem is, they would quick as shit too. But the problem is that they would you'd see them on the side of the road smoking every once in a while. And it's because they were overheating that speed controller. The heat exchanger just wasn't able to keep up with it. So that's a thing that you'll see. And unless somebody tries to daisy chain a bunch of LiPo batteries, I don't think you'll have to worry about the batteries too much. That's a lithium ferrous battery, and those are actually really really stable batteries. Sorry, saying Challenger. It's my choice. It's a brick, but I'm in love with that brick. I like it. Chuck saying Oldsmobile 442. Love that car. June saying 49 Merc. Am I right? Yeah, it's a good looking car too. Yeah, Olds 442 is a sweet car. Jimmy said he had one. He misses it. Those are nice. What, W30 don't want any love on that? Skid's saying he still likes the Camaro 6.7s. Yep. Sovereign saying old school. My first pick would be a 65 AC 427. I had a Superformance with a 472 cubic inch FE big block, and it was a monster to drive. Don't forget the big V8. Yep. Yeah, I tell you what, y'all know I'm in love with 73 and 74 Super Duties. I mean, dude, if I get my hands on one of those. But again, those were kind of big and heavy for their day too. Let's see. Oh, Sovereign saying 85 has some drawbacks. Yeah, talking about the engine oil contamination. Well, that's another thing. There's a lot that comes to mind with issues that you're going to have with the 85. Not the least of which, with my car, I'd have to put a fuel system in it. I'm about to put a fuel system in my car. There's no way that's happening. The issue that you run into really with those cars is everything is amplified with it. The range issue is an amplified problem. It's not like it's a little bit of a problem. It's an amplified problem. E85 contaminating the oil can be an issue. Your oil change intervals, you half the mileage. There's so much to it that, I mean, for me, I just don't want to mess with it. Besides, I really like that car, and I don't want to start putting a bunch of modifications to it when, I just get my key and I go to the thing and I press a little button and it goes boom, and I like that. I don't have to worry about what it does. Plus, look, last night, guys, the car was running 1050s at just a scotch under 130 miles an hour. That's fast. And I'll put it to you like this. I know we're talking about drag racing and every 10th is a mile and whatever. But compared to a car, a known, very fast car, that will run into the nines, that car was running 920, mid 920s. My car was running 1048, 1050, and 1053. That's just a couple of tenths at best, and at worst, 2.5 tenths off of what that car was running. Now, you can say that, well, that's 2 tenths. That's forever at a drag race, and you'd be correct in saying that. But can I tell you that 2 tenths of a second is how long it takes for you to, watch this, blink your eye. It'd be like the car's going dut through the traps. Think of that. Go dut, blink your eye, and then go dut again. It's almost like it takes you longer because you got to get them ramped up. It's like that's how fast the difference between 2 tenths is. And that's how consistent these cars are. But that's how close to that significantly faster than mine car is. Remember what significantly faster means in the game that we play, guys. A tenth of a second is a lot of real estate. When you're going that fast, it looks like a lot more than what it really is, but it really isn't. It just is what it is, which is couple of really fast cars going down the track, only a couple of tenths of a second, literally the blink of an eye separates these two cars. That's crazy, but that's also not a car running on E85. Now, the cars that are running on E85 are significantly faster than that. That's 2 blinks of an eye, which really is forever, and I won't make a car that goes that fast for me. Hang on just a second. Got another, somebody super chatted me, but it's gone. What happened to the super chat? Somebody super chatted, looks like about $10, but I can't find you. There's All Stock. Where's my other one? Where'd you go? If you super chatted me, I want to recognize you for it, but I don't have you on the feed. Oh man, and I thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I want to recognize that you did that. And I am so sorry that, oh, there you are. Gary, thank you very much. Saying, love the live drag videos. Thank you, man. I'm glad you like those. The ride-alongs are always fun for me because I've had to post up some real duds before. And look, even us guys that do this all the time, even the professionals make mistakes. It's one of the things that I kind of like watching golf. Like, I don't watch golf on TV. I used to like playing golf when I was younger, but not that I'm a golf guy. It's just another thing to challenge me. And always up for a challenge. But the reason why I like watching golf, not tinted, like I'm not just watching it, but those are professional golfers. These guys play golf every day for a living. It's an individual sport. And when they shank a shot, it makes them a little bit more human, in my opinion. So anyway, I'm glad you like the ride-alongs. I love doing the ride-along videos. Win, lose, or draw, I always have a really good time with those. One of the best races I've ever had was caught on a ride-along video, and it was White Mare driving his dad's red eye, and he got out on me, and I was reeling him in, but I could not catch him by the time we went through the traps. And guys, when I tell you the race was close, he got out on me, and it's a red eye, so when they leave, nothing leaves like a red eye or a demon. He gets out on me, and man, I am coming up on him. I'm coming up on him to the point where it sounds like you're riding in a boat with 2 engines. I mean, we are literally like this. And I'm not kidding. Like, the length of this Pepsi bottle was the difference between his car and my car, the nose of those 2 cars going through the traps. So, yeah, lots of fun. I loved it. In fact, I need to get some of those videos organized in there. Gary saying, it was me. It was weird, man. On my side, it didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't show up. That was so weird. I'm just busting back up through here as the Nitro Crew goes, big. Remember the CompuCar 225 horse 2-stage wet kits for the 5.0s back in the day? Went through a few air boxes. So do you remember the guys that would run those through the plenum in the 5.0s? So yeah, there was a lot of different setups for the 5.0s back then, because that's what everybody was running. But the trick setup was, guys would run twin throttle body. They would cut and hack the upper intake manifolds, and they would run throttle bodies on the upper plenum. They would run secondary throttle bodies. They would run nitrous kits. They would run all kinds of goofy, weird stuff. Oh my God, it was so weird. But yeah, that was some cool stuff back in the day. I do remember some of those. Let's see. I don't want to miss anybody here. Let's see. So I'm saying electric is pretty much batteries, an inverter, and AC electric motors. That's your drivetrain in a nutshell, which is about right. I'm still trying to figure out how to make, how to hook up a couple of big ass capacitors to that electric motor and just let it eat. Just bypass the speed controller all the way around. HU's asking about better traction for his all-wheel drive Taurus. I don't know, man. Really, I don't know. Any of the Pirellis would probably help, but I mean, if you really want to get it out of wheel hop, just go drag radials all around it, but I know that's not really feasible. Oh yeah, Jimmy's saying get out of the all season. That's probably going to be the best advice. Oh, Chuck's saying he'd love to find a demon in a few years, but red eyes will probably be easier. They'll definitely be easier, and they're just going to keep making red eyes. Jimmy's saying I learned all about E85 fuel mileage in a 2009 Tahoe. No, thank you. So I had a 2009 F-150 4x4 that was a flex fuel truck, and I would run it on E85 for maybe a week out of the month, and yeah, it was peppy, but it would that thing did not have a range on E85. I'll tell you that. Sovereign saying Hellcats are solid. Yes, they are. Frederick saying what's cooking, B? Got the arm flex and the bog dude with the shades. I like it. Chuck saying the RT and the Hellcat, but it does seem well built. They are. They're all pretty stout. Jimmy saying just the amount of money you save in insurance is worth the purchase. Hilton saying what Floodmasters on a 4.7 sound the best to you? 40 series, for sure. That's what I've got on Sierra. HU's hanging out with Jimmy. Oh, Chuck's hanging out with. Yeah, he's saying he ran those on his V10 truck. Sounded deep. Yeah, I love the Floodmasters. Sound great. They're not the actual best in the world for performance, but when it comes to sound, they're awesome. And unless your car is making an obnoxious amount of power, you'll be just fine. Skid's saying, if I skip us back to the big and heavy muscle, I love the 70 and 72 Monte Carlo. So there's a guy here in town. I don't know what he had done to it, but he's got a 72 Monte, and those things are awesome. I can't remember the guy's channel now. Damn it, what is his? I just subscribed to him. Anyway, this guy, I guess he's got a warehouse full of old big body cars, and I'd love to see if he's got one of these old Monte Carlos. But anyway, yeah, I've been stuck listening to him talk about these cars. It just fascinates me. The old big Luxo barges that just have these big ass high compression engines. I love that stuff. Sovereign saying I saw that video on Revlon. Too bad the red light though. That's all right. Chandelier, or name change to Chandelier. That was a great Revlon vid. I had a lot of fun with that one. I cannot believe I read it. Golly. What a mess that one was. Jimmy's hanging out with HU saying if you want to run all seasons, go with the Michelin Pilot Sport, probably the best. Thanks again, Gary. I appreciate that, buddy. Oh, Kurt's asking, Honda has improved in F1 racing by making the smaller bore and longer stroke. 1.6 liter, does that make sense to you? Yeah, when it comes to this, the thing is that it doesn't matter. Stroke and bore get a little bit conflated. Guys think, well, if it's got a long stroke, it can't rev, or if it's got a big bore, it's going to rev. And it's all about it has a lot more to do with the cylinder heads than anything else. And you're talking about more or less you're talking about over square or under square. So in other words, over square meaning you have a much larger bore than the stroke. But the stroke is relative at that point. So in other words, the piston speed is going to be the same regardless of how big the piston is at any given RPM, stroke for stroke and rod length for rod length, I guess you could say too. But that's just acceleration points. You get the idea though. They could be trying to take advantage of having that thing come out of a corner a little bit better by going with a little bit longer stroke, a little bit smaller bore. Maybe that helps them with velocity if they're running a specifically small valve cylinder head or something like that. They could be playing to the strength of a cylinder head at that point. Gary's loving his 6-speed Scatty. I like that. I like to hear that. Oh, Angie's asking why the TRX Supercharger has a cover on it other than other models. I don't know. That's how they did it, man. Doesn't do anything differently. Jebediah saying, how you doing, Mr. Mason? Got the fist bump. Have you noticed the increase in price for the used car market? God, have I ever. It's almost the same price to order a new Hellcat than to get one used. Yeah, I know. As a matter of fact, I went tiptoeing through some of the online used car sections. And with my local drag strip going away, I was thinking, well, if I did get something else, what would I get? And what would I use it for? Because I want to still be competitive. Regardless of what I do, I want to be able to compete at least on some level. And I started thinking, well, I've got a history with Corvette. Maybe I start taking a look at a C7 Grand Sport. C7 Z06. What are those things going for these days? Whoa, was I blown away. So the cost alone is enough to drive me away at that point. It's basically like buying a new car. That's how much the used market has gone up. So, $72,000 for a Grand Sport. That's what they went for new. So, and no thanks. The Z06s might be a little bit better deal as far as bang for buck, but they're still going for $80,000. Like, what? Hell no, I ain't spending that kind of money on something I'm just going to go out and beat up on. So, anyway, I'm on that deal. So, yeah, I've been keeping up with it. And that's another reason why I've elected to keep my car. You have a Nitro, the swivel buckets and a Monty was classy. I like that. Oh, Jimmy's hanging out with 3.7. Chuck's asking, what is the advantage of a trans brake? The idea of the advantage of a trans brake is that it allows you to, with a manual transmission, control the launch of the vehicle. Basically, you just put your foot on the clutch, hit a button, and then mat your foot to the floor, and it'll just go. It's a rev limiter, and then there's a couple of different schools of thought with how these things work, but the two-step is a rev limiter that is less than your normal wide open throttle rev limiter. So you would be on the button. When you launch the car, you take your hand off the button and then you just drive the car like normally, and you have a normal rev limiter on the top end and your two-step down low. That's the original idea with that. And of course, that you could do the same with an automatic. It's just the idea that you are getting the car into a higher RPM to get it to launch, and you're trying to get some consistency out of it. The issue that you can run into, though, is that a two-step can potentially hit your drive line a lot harder than foot braking, for example. If you're going to dump the clutch in a manual, you're just going to dump the clutch in a manual, so that's a moot point. But for an automatic, you will potentially be hitting the drive line a little bit harder, when you come off the two-step, or trans brake, really, in that case. And I'm thinking, why was I thinking two? I saw that and I read two-step. Anyway, trans brake. You're locking reverse and drive engaged at the same time, so it just locks the thing in gear. And you're hanging the thing off the converter, and at that point, when you let it go, it just takes reverse off and hits you in drive. It's an advantage if you have all of the hardware on the car after the transmission and back, able to manage that amount of power getting hit with that torque load that quickly. It's one of the reasons why Demons have a nasty habit of blowing up rear diffs, is because guys were launching them off their trans brakes instead of foot braking them. And to be honest, the difference wasn't really all that much in terms of ET. So, but that's what it does. It just allows a little bit higher hit of power for a perceived gain in performance. I don't know that it really helps. Let's see. Oh, Jimmy's saying, yeah, with the shortage of cars and all of that. Yeah, I mean, supply and demand, I guess, at that point. It's a seller's market for sure. If you have to have a car, you will be paying more for it right now. This kid's saying the C7 price is unreal. And then Chuck's saying Demons come with them, but not red. I was talking about the trans brake. That is true. So with that, guys, we are just over 2 hours. I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out with me. It's been my privilege to be able to hang out with you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Stay safe out there, guys. Ray, miss you. Love you, brother. And we will catch y'all on the next one. That is a wrap. Adios.